flash across my mind before sleep, or sometimes while making love, or once when my car swerved and my mind thought I was done, so it showed me his dusty knees one last time before the end. My brother, playing in the dirt, on his hands and knees, old dog collar around his skinny neck, and a chain stretching up to a line strung between two trees that allowed the dogs to run back and forth along a dirt path. And I am just out of frame, spindly-legged and watching, always watching. It's a true story. I have a picture of it.
Wow.
Since this book came out, and I don't think I can go home for Christmas this year.
You can join the rest of us.
Yeah, there's plenty of us like that. The next poem is about I started with some kind of boyhood poems here in the beginning to kind of give a little, primer on where I'm from and kind of where these poems are coming from. And this is a poem about a job I had in the summer once. It's called St. John the Baptist. Shirtless and sweating in the summer, I inoculate sheep. They will not still as I straddle and hold them with my knees, aim the needle at their jugular veins. Too deep, and the needle will pierce clean through. Are these the lambs you shepherded through the wilderness to wash and give that final protection? Their blood so precious as to require a vaccine of pure spirit. I wash the woolen filth from my arms and chest, bend down and place my neck beneath the barn faucet, bend down humbly. So since this is a very fine Catholic institution, Italy, I thought I'd read some of my more religious-ish poems. I'm culturally Catholic, as all Louisianians are. We're those fun Catholics that everybody wants to be like. I don't remember any of the stuff I'm supposed to remember. But a lot of people where I'm from are also Catholic and named weird things like the boys in this poem. This poem's called Parable. When I am low and thinking darkly, there often comes to mind a moment from my childhood of two brothers about our own age, named Cain and Abel. Not the boys from the book, but the sons of a friend of my father, who invited us to stay one Christmas when we were down on our luck again. How after we played all afternoon in the yard with an old foam football and ate together boiled shrimp with rice, we sat down to watch the boys open their presents. And I didn't realize until Abel opened his to find the same football, two chunks of foam torn by the dogs, how none of the toys were in packages, and many I had seen earlier in their room, and how I couldn't keep the shame from my face as I met Cain's eyes. His look was a stone I have carried with me, on some days as heavy as the way he placed his hand on his brother's shoulder. And oh God, how I can't find the lesson in all of this. Oh dear God of terrible mercies. Christmas poem.
We can clap if you want. You want us to clap or
No,
snap? No, you're good. You're
whatever
good.
you like, whatever you feel, however the spirit takes you. No, I don't care anyway. This next poem might take a little explanation. Maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes when I read this poem in the North, it takes a lot of explanation. But this poem's called Cochon de lait, which in French literally means suckling pig, but we use it to mean like a pig roast. You have a pig roast, right? Every culture has pig roast. Every culture worth anything has pig roast. And in Louisiana, we use that as an excuse to, like, say, kill a wild boar and bury it in the ground for 3 days and cook it, and then have an outrageous party. Read this poem in Portland one time to the blankest faces I've ever seen in my life. But I like to read this poem to kind of give an idea of the landscape that I grew up in. So all you really need to know is that Cochon de lait just means big party with a pig. All right? It's in 6 sections. 1. The 1st of September, 2 chickens hung on a nail, necks wrung. She salts the water to boil. In the crisp air outside the camper kitchen, her boys chop and cord firewood. She watches them while she works, the sound of wood breaking, wings snapped from the body, the labor of it all. 2. Their father prepares the pit. Shirtless, he digs post holes for the tin shed he has built to cover the pig. Light reflected off the dark water of Woolen Lake, scent of cypress trees turned brown from bagworms. Nearby, a blue heron waits for a flash of silver. Nothing wasted here. He digs without bitterness or self-pity. His boys pile the wood. 3. A boy hidden deep in the brush waits at clearing's edge. At dusk, a sow comes with 2 piglets rooting in the half-light. To hunt the hog is to feel what the hog feels in the thicket bramble. The boy edges forward, but father stays his hand. This is not an act of kindness. They wait for the boar. 4. The boar sleeps in his clay bed. What dreams for those reared in heat? The father wakes his sons in the night, hands them shovels to turn the coals. For 3 nights he teaches them this. 5. Early September, a bacchanal. Bonfires across the yard burn the cypress wood, bagworms and all. Cousins arrive, then men with beards and reddened lips, then musicians with guitars, banjos, accordions. Au catin, they cry. Donnez-moi mon chapeau. Parents become children, and children run wild all night. 6. Morning comes. Across the lake, the water stills, and owl calls carry far. The fire has gone low, and the pit must be filled again, but today we will make no work. People scattered across furniture, children on the floor in sleeping bags. The sun lights the room. I refuse to wake. So that poem had a little French in it. I was asked to help out with Dr. Quintanilla's translation class this semester, and it was a total blast. I see many of you here. So I wanted to throw a little French in for you. That phrase, per our usual conversations this semester, which have been very lively and enlightening, language has such a strange way about it. So that phrase, au catin, and if you use that word in France, you're going to be in trouble. Catin, it means prostitute. But in Louisiana, remember, we're fun Catholics. It really means more like, it's a term of endearment. You hear it a lot in Cajun and Zydeco songs, Creole songs. It means kind of like doll, like when you're like hollering at, you're like, oh, catin, right? So it's just like little quirky, little things that I've tried to put in here. Donnez-moi mon chapeau. That means hand me my hat, technically, but we wouldn't say it like that. It really means like catch me my hat is how we would say it. And it doesn't mean you may not have a hat at all. It means it's time to go. Time to leave this party. Catch with your sweetheart. So like, there's not a lot of French in this book, but I do put some in there. We were arguing a lot this semester in the translation class about what to do, what not to do, what we would do with a poem. The students that are in here will tell you that I kind of dissed a lot of famous writers. I think I dissed Seamus Heaney. I definitely took it out on Federico Garcia Lorca. And there were a couple of other people who were much better writers than me that I had some qualms with their translations. So
You're getting some haters on
I'm
Instagram.
sure. I'm sure. This is going on Instagram. Like Lorca is amazing. Heaney is amazing. When it comes to translation, it's all about choice, and we argued a lot about which word choices we would use. And the Lorca one particularly, he uses a word in his poem, "The Guitar," that we argued over. Monotona, monotonously. He says the guitar weeps monotonously. And I said, as a poet, I would never use the word monotonous in a poem. It sounds terrible. That's the word that's here in the Spanish. That's the word that most people translate it to. And the students kind of challenged me with my big mouth and see if I could do better. So I translated a little bit of this Lorca poem that I'd like to read for them in gratitude for keeping my feet to the fire. I'll just read a little section of it in the Spanish first, which hopefully I don't butcher too bad. Es imposible callarla, llora monótona, como llora el agua, como llora el viento sobre la navana. Es imposible callarla. So I translated that to the monotonous. See if you can figure out what I did with it. Impossible to silence it. Over and over it cries, like the water cries, like the wind cries over fallen snow. Impossible to silence. Take that, Lord God. Just used over and over instead of monotonous. It's an ugly word. Oh. There you go. Tweet about it.
It's on.
Tweet about it. The Lorca scholars are going to come out of the woodwork on me.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to translate, and I really enjoyed the students' work and the discussions we had. I'll do one more translation of mine. One of the books that I translated that I mentioned in the class was Javier Lentini's Invención del Otoño, a Spanish poet, peninsular Spanish poet. And I thought I'd read just a section of one of his poems, which are all kind of long, so I'll just read section 2 of this poem, which is called Lambs of God That Impose Sins Upon the World. So, more deep subjects here. I assure you that nothing of yours will be enough to interest me. Not the green clusters that brown with your gaze, nor the sighs, passion scenes, nor the exercise of the hair cloth, taking root to fatherly sculptures. I do not flee, and no longer attempt to reach the nirvana of the trees, nor the song of the Hare Krishna, nor the hosannas. I sail between the lichens without gift. There is no worm that touches it, nor is there an Atlantis. The paradise fled with the serpent. That's Javier Lentini. Had that app open on my phone for like 6 hours. Okay, so those were for the translation students, and I'll go back to reading my untranslated stuff. But what a fascinating class that was for me to work with. Really rekindled my love of some languages, and we got to talk about a lot of languages, some dead languages, some sagas. Just a brilliant class. So I was very thankful to be a part of it. So what I like to do when I read at universities, I like to do an English major poem. This is what I would of all of mine, which I like to write kind of like simple Southern poems, but of all my poems, this is maybe one of the more English majory ones, because it is me in conversation with the poet William Blake. You know, read William Blake, I assume. The Lamb, the Tiger, well, some of his stuff you read when you're really young. He was a British pre-romantic poet, and a really, really strange dude. Like, if you ever read anything on him, I mean, he did some weird stuff. He was like kind of a hippie before, like a couple hundred years before they were invented. And he just kind of fascinated me. A lot of people have asked over the years, why write a poem to William Blake when you're a Creole poet born in the 80s from middle of nowhere, Louisiana? And I don't really have a good answer for that, except that I was mulling over some some things that were bothering me about the world, and he kept coming to mind. So it starts with a quote from William Blake's poem, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Dip him in the river who loves water, expect poison from the standing water. So this poem is called The Dissenter's Ground. 1. Bunhill Fields, London. William, would I ask you this if I knew you? Would you answer, or would the angels fall silent and fail to speak, their words muffled and lost through time and ether and unconsecrated earth? It's just that I have no one else to turn to. 2. Cameron Parish, Louisiana. Here is what I know. When the sun sets on Rutherford Beach and the wind off the Gulf lifts brown water over shelled sands, the oil rigs on the horizon no longer remind me of God. 3. They say in 50 years the sea level will rise all the way to Natchez. This is the prophecy of my age, that this soupy ground will be seabed again. 4. William, we live on borrowed land, delta mud laid thick by flood after flood, the warbling, shifting muck of home. It shapes you, this instability, this accretion of silt and image. This is our homily as the waters rise around us, that we revel in the uncertainty of the seasons, that we praise this tradition of inevitable transience. We will take drowning too far. 5. Your reason is sleeping, William, and what has formed in that darkness is this: oil, that prophecy of your industrial revolution come to shackle us. As a child, I thought the rigs were gods, and the men who went to work them had gone on to heaven. 6. Luciana. The God of the flood still lives here. You can see his practiced hand among the dead cypress stalks that dot the living water. My father explained to me how water overcomes land, how one turn of the river can make a field or forest into a museum of skeleton trees. But when I asked why, he said nothing. Around here, we don't pray for rain. 7. William, I too am a born dissenter. There is a deep belief that lives in the water, in the fields, in a way of life that has endured for generations, forged in heat and work and the fear of a vengeful God. But where is that belief in my heart? When I look my father in the face, I am ashamed. 8. Albion. In the catacombs of St. Paul's, I found your marbled face, William, but the stone was silent, your prophecy blunted. Your bronze bust in the poet's corner spoke no answers. But these are not the trappings of a living prophet. I imagined you then receiving visions, naked in your garden at Felpham. I have asked my questions to the void, to the gods, to the earth, to the muses, to a man buried quietly in the dissenter's ground, Bunhill Fields, London. Farther and farther this doubt echoes, and I am Adam in the garden, palms open. It's a pretty academic one.
It was.
I read that at bars sometimes. I thought I'd read some poems about boys. I mentioned my son earlier. He's 16 now, and when this book was coming out, he was convinced, because he's on Instagram now, and whatever, in the 10th grade, he was convinced that the book was about him. He was like, "You've got to be kidding me. How could you write a book about me? You're telling people how to drown me." And I was like, "Boy, you're not the boy." All right, that's what we call him in the house, boy. He's our only son. So